Hello, everyone. My name is Aarón Delgadillo Mejía, and he is my partner.
Hello, my name is Pablo Buenfil.
And the title of our study is The Impact of Students' Perceptions of the Textbook on Their Performance in the Light of Krashen's Affective Filter Theory. So here we have our problem, which is that EFL students' perceptions do not tend to be considered as a possible reason for poor outcomes in their performance when working on the textbook. Then we have our objectives, which are to determine if there are any negative perceptions among EFL students regarding the textbook, and to determine how EFL students' perceptions influence their performance when working on the textbook. So, based on these objectives, we made the following research questions, which are: what are the perceptions of EFL students towards the use of a textbook, and how do EFL students' perceptions influence their performance when working on the textbook?
Well, now here we have the theoretical framework. The basis of this study is the affective filter that is stated by Krashen. This theory is based on assumptions that every people that is trying to learn a language carry on a barrier that hinder or difficult the language. This barrier has four components. There are attitude, motivation, self-confidence, anxiety, that could be stress too. For the mean of this study, the concepts are we are working on are motivations and self-confidence. Motivation is the desire or willingness to learn a language. Self-confidence, in the other hand, is the learner's belief on their own ability to learn and use the language. It is difficult to to ease to easily find a relationship between the affective theory and the perception because of the traditional conception of the perception that is defined as a opinion or point of view. But here we have a definition of Aguilar that states that it can be either from students or teacher. Both can be divided into negative and positive perceptions, and the elements that compose them are sensation, experience, prejudice, and emotions. So these make the affective filter by Krashen align with the study of perceptions. So the variables of this study are the following: student perceptions of the textbook in the terms of motivations and self-confidence, and students' performance in the textbook. Next, please. Okay. For the matter of this study, we made this operationalization where we have a textbook as the main source of input in a learning environment, apart from the teacher. Performance on the textbook is defined as the quality of the students' outcomes in terms of completing the tasks and achieving task goals that are in the textbook. Perception refers to any sensation, experience, prejudice, and emotion that the students encounter when using a textbook. Motivation is the desire and willingness to use a textbook for learning a language. And the last one is self-confidence. That is another variable, which is the learner's feelings in being capable of successfully completing the textbook exercises and achieving the goal of those exercises. Next, please. So that we have some hypotheses for this study that are related with the performance of on the textbook of students. The first one is that students have negative perceptions towards the textbook, and such perceptions in terms of motivations and self-confidence lead to a poor performance when working on a textbook. Next, please. Well, now moving on to the literature review, we divided this part into three sections. The first section is called Students' Perceptions in ELT. We have mostly quantitative studies made in Turkey and China. And the principal findings are that implementation strategy influences students' perceptions and attitudes more than individual backgrounds. Students' perceptions of innovative and well-structured instruction are positively associated with their graded academic gains. From students' perceptions, supplementary materials are important as long as the different extra materials care about addressing the group's interests. Next, please. From this section of the literature review, we can point out that there is a hierarchy in intrinsic perceptions. Intrinsic because every student or every person that is trying to learn English have an individual perception in terms of motivation and self-confidence. And these are supposed to influence more the learning process rather than the contextual variables. So that interest must be addressed by book because it seems to be the main aspect in motivating or in creating motivating activities. Next, please. The second section is engaging students and teachers' perceptions to the book. Here we have some studies that mostly are quantitative too, made in Germany, Indonesia, and Iran. The findings are that the considerable of overestimation by teachers when faced with negative student assessment. Conversely, teachers with positive student assessment exhibited minor underestimations. The evaluated textbook demonstrated limited utility concerning the selection and organization of content features, a notable disparity in ratings with adopted textbook receiving higher evaluations compared to the locally developed counterparts. Next, please. From this literature review, we can point out that at some point, teachers and students' perceptions meet because they're both are capable of developing a potential analysis towards an in-depth characteristics of the textbook if they are trained or lead to do so. This disparity that are mentioned in the studies before is mainly because the differences between the preparation and the knowledge and the nature of the roles in a learning environment between the teacher and the students. Next, please. Finally, we have the last sections that is evaluation of textbooks as ELT material. We have two studies here that are qualitative from Colombia and Iran. The principal findings are that the textbook had a prevalent inclination to the social group representation category to portray American culture as a realm of abundance, and a superficial approach to multiculturalism was identified. And the EFL textbook Top Notch, that is the one that was studied in this research, is the standout performance thanks to its ability to motivate students, its convenient word list, and its visual elements. Next, please. From this part of the literature review, it is important to highlight the importance of the cultural matter that must be addressed by the textbook, because this cultural matter sometimes attends to the interest aspect of the target population or the target students that they are developed to. So the motivation here appears again as the main aspect of creating a motivating activities for the students.
And now about the method. What we want to do is to measure the variables and the correlation between them. So the focus of our study will be quantitative, since, well, this focus aims to measure instead of to describe. The design is correlational and non-experimental. And the context, we will carry out this research. Well, we will collect the answers in the Centro de Bachillerato Tecnológico Industrial y de Servicios, number 253. In this school, they take 4 levels of English, and students have to study for 6 semesters, but they only take English in the first 4 semesters. Then the participant selection. So the population are students from the Centro de Bachillerato Tecnológico y Industrial y de Servicios, number 253, who take English classes and use a textbook as their main teaching material. The sample will be 3 groups, so that sums up around 120 fourth semester students. And this is a convenient selection because we intend to collect the answers at the end of their classes. Their classes last 1 hour, so we would have to wait 1 hour to collect around 40 answers. With just 3 groups, we should be able to collect the minimum amount of answers for a quantitative research without spending a lot of time. Moreover, students from fourth semester have used a textbook for a longer time, so they are more likely to have developed perceptions of the book. Our instrument will be a Likert scale, and as you can see here, we chose it due to its additive nature to measure variables. The Likert scale will be divided in 2 categories. In the first one, we will use a checklist from the study of HOPA, in which the students suggested different categories for criteria, such as content or design. And we will adapt it to relate it with 2 categories from the Krashen's affective filter theory. And these categories are motivation and self-confidence. They can be related with the criteria because the different aspects in them model their perceptions. Here we have the ethical aspects, which will be anonymity of their answers. We don't really have to know their names. And then we will hand consent, consent forms to the students. And in the consent form, a paragraph will be written to let students know that they are signing to give us permission to use their answers for the purposes of our study. Then for the procedure, first we will pilot the instrument. We intend to do it with the students from the same institution, but in the second semester. After we get the, the piloting the instrument, we will make any necessary correction. Then we need to do some administrative procedures, which are like asking for permission to the principal and to the teachers to give us some time of their classes. Before collecting the answers, we will give an explanation and the consent form to the participants. And lastly, the application of the scale. The instrument validation will be a peer review, and the limitations could be biased perceptions due to the student's choice of using pseudo textbooks instead of the original ones. Sometimes they do not have enough money to buy the original textbook and they take copies, and that could affect their perceptions. Also, some of them don't even have the copies. And here we have our possible findings, which are that students have negative perceptions in terms of motivation, which affect negatively their performance on the textbook. Another finding could be that students don't find the content and design of the textbook encouraging, so they don't have the willingness to use it. Then students have negative perceptions of the textbook in terms of self-confidence, which affect their performance on the textbook. And lastly, students lack self-confidence because the content might not be appropriate for them. And here we have our references. So that would be all from our part. Thank you very much. So do you want to say goodbye?
Bye. Thank you.